What's up, everybody? This is Elliot with Read Write Web. Today I wanted to give you a look at the new Maps application in iOS 6, talk to you about some of its amazing new features and some functionality that Apple stripped out of this application that's got me a little bit bummed. I'm going to open up Maps, and you will see that this application has a completely redesigned user interface and a new set of cartography. Apple's partnered with TomTom to develop these new maps, and they're really beautiful. Zooming in here, you're going to see some nice textures in areas like state parks. The fonts are really sharp on the roads, and I like how when you zoom in, the font sizes actually stay the same. They just slowly build more and more detail into the maps that you're looking at. But the redesigned maps aren't really what people are talking about. It's the new 3D flyover view, and to access that, you pull up your page peel in the bottom right-hand corner and choose Satellite. Now, the Maps application has always had this sort of space satellite perspective, and this looks very similar to the way it did when Apple was using Google's Maps, but where it gets really cool is when you choose the 3D option. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see downtown San Francisco here, and I'm going to hit the 3D button in the bottom left-hand corner of the application. And when I do that, you're going to see my perspective shifts almost more to a bird's eye view. Now, as I zoom in, you're going to start seeing these 3D buildings generate within this map. And man, they are really good-looking 3D buildings. The textures that Apple's built in here are just tack sharp. They've not just kind of settled for rectangles with, antennas at the top of them. They've actually mapped out some pretty detailed architecture on these buildings, and you can really see that as I rotate around. Now, the two-finger rotate is a new gesture for Maps, and when I do that, you see I sort of spin around. It's almost like I'm in a helicopter flying over the city. Really, really cool feature there. Again, I can zoom in on these just to give you an idea of how sharp those textures are and how detailed the architecture is. This is a really good building here to show that off. Every little nook and cranny on the roof of that building is mapped in 3D. Now, it's not just skyscrapers that are actually mapped. They've done some pretty cool work with the landscape too. I'm going to zoom out here and fly over to Coit Tower. And Coit Tower is a good example because it sits at the top of a hill in San Francisco. And when I zoom in on that, you can see that they've actually mapped out individual trees in 3D. And it's just a really neat experience to play around with this. You can zoom to different cities all over the globe, and they've done a great job with this flyby perspective. Really, really neat to play around with. Apple's also introduced turn-by-turn navigation into this build of Maps. Just quit out on me. We're going to forgive that. It is a beta build. Let me open it up again and show you guys turn-by-turn directions. So I've got a pin I dropped here. I'm going to tap on that pin, and you'll see a new button in the left-hand side. It looks like a car. That's an instant directions button. Kind of cool. You can tap on that and get driving directions. Just like we saw in previous builds of iOS, you can choose from different routes, hit the start button, and you get this turn-by-turn interface. Now, I have a Wi-Fi only iPad, so I can't actually get location-based directions. Instead, I'll swipe. I guess you swipe at the top of the screen to move between different steps along your journey. Now, that's cool, right? Instant driving directions with that car button. But what about if you want to travel on foot or via public transportation? I'm going to hit the end button and tap on this directions icon in the top left-hand corner. And right at the top, you'll see the walking man and the bus. And those are icons for walking directions and public transit directions. When you choose walking directions, Maps warns you, hey, use caution, but it generates those directions like it's done in the past. Awesome. I'm going to do this one more time. This time I'm going to choose public transportation, hit route, and instead of getting directions, I get this brand new box. I've never seen anything like this in iOS. It says routing apps from the App Store. What Apple's doing here is telling you if you want this public transportation feature, go to the App Store, download an application that supports it, and we'll aggregate that info right here inside of Maps. Now, it's pretty cool that Apple's allowing third-party apps to integrate into Maps, but it's really a bummer that they have stripped out one of my favorite features, which is public transportation directions. Leave me a comment in this video if you feel the same way. I used to use that all the time, especially if I'm in a city for the first time. It gave you some great options, told you where you're going to transfer, told you when you'd arrive, and now it is gone from Maps in iOS 6. Another feature that has been stripped away from us, and one that I used to use all the time, is Street View. So remember that pin I dropped earlier? See that directions button, that green car? In iOS 5, instead of a green car, you saw a man in an orange circle. That was the icon for Street View. And Street View, you'd tap that and see a perspective of the intersection or the road where you dropped a pin. That is no longer there. You can no longer access Street View. If I tap on the eye icon, you'll see there is a satellite perspective, but Street View is gone, completely eliminated, at least from this build of iOS 6's Maps. Now you might be thinking, what if you do the 3D perspective? Well, you're right. I can switch to 3D. I can zoom in on that intersection, get pretty close, about 200 feet above it. But that's not a replacement for Street View. That doesn't let me know what it looks like from the intersection. I'm a little bit bummed about that. Let me know how you feel about Apple taking away public transportation and Street View from Maps. Let me know what you think about the new features as well. For Read Write Web, this is Elliot Weisberg. I hope you have a great day.